guys, it's party time. Woo! This week, we're building piñatas. So this is going to be the Llama from Fortnite, which is a great character to make into a piñata because the character itself is a piñata. Works out really well. We were asked to build this for a friend.
For Samo's friend's brother's birthday.
Yeah. Every birthday deserves a piñata. So we're building a piñata. This is actually the first piñata I ever built. So I'm sure that I am doing some things the hard way, but it actually was way easier than I expected and way more fun than I expected. So I started with a cardboard box and I printed out an image of the Llama, the scale of the box. I printed it in a bunch of 8.5 by 11 sheets and then taped them together. And that way I had a template that I could lay across. And then this other piece of paper, the fold in it is the thickness of the box so that I could make flaps to fold in for all of the parts that were not box shaped. So I used my template to do the profile front and back, and then I used the extra cardboard to make the flaps. So I would cut all the way through on the edges of the flaps and then cut partially through, just through the first layer of the cardboard where the hinge part of the flap needed to be so that I could just bend them in, and it was structurally more sound that way to kind of be using all parts of the same box. And I used basically the one box to build everything except for this little top of his head. It wasn't quite tall enough, so I had to add a chunk for the top of his head. This is the legs and the ears. We had a little bit of this packing cardboard. The corrugation was extra thick. It was like an inch thick. And so I used that for the legs and the ears. I think toilet paper rolls would have worked really well for the legs, but we didn't have any laying around that didn't have toilet paper on them. So I used the stuff and I wrapped them in tape before I started working on them with the paper mache. This is the whole thing assembled before doing the decorations. So he's got the whole body is one box except for that little tippy top of his head, and then the legs and the ears are separate pieces that were hot glued on. Then this is the paper macheing. I used
crepe paper
for the paper macheing, and I only had wood glue, so I used wood glue, which is not entirely transparent, which means that it left sort of a little bit of a haze. I was hoping that it would be okay, and it actually kind of looked cool. It gave it some extra texture, but if it was going to matter, then you'd want to use a glue that was actually going to dry clear. But this is glue and water to a thin consistency, and I basically painted some on the cardboard and then laid pieces of the crepe paper on top of that, and then painted the glue mixture on top of the crepe paper to seal it all in. I don't know if I had to do this step on the bottom because the bottom gets the furry, textured, cut up, frilly crepe paper. I'm doing such a good job explaining this. So it all got covered, the whole bottom, but I paper mache'd the whole thing, which gave it a nice base of the right colors and everything. And the top was just the paper mache. If you're building a piñata, you could just use a box. The example on the left, the close-up, is just a square box, and I was using it as an example, and I got that whole side covered and decided that it would be cute to make it into a piñata. And so at the end of the video, Sam and I made it into a piñata, just this little box. But I mean, it's actually a really easy kind of fun project because it's just gluing strips onto cardboard, and you don't have to make it a ridiculous shape. It could just be a box. We made the box into a little square monster, and he was adorable. Since you're going to be paper macheing anyway, you could use a balloon and get a round shape, and you can paper mache over the top of it, and then when the paper mache dries, then you can pop the balloon and pull it out. If you were doing it that way, you'd probably want to use newspaper, do some legitimate paper mache, because the tissue paper just sort of making the colors right, but I don't know how much structural integrity it would offer. So what's Fortnite like?
I've never played, but my cousin has, and I've just kind of watched him play. And you like get these characters, and then you get dropped into a map, and you just battle.
You battle against other people who are playing? This character, the Loot Llama, what's he?
He just drops onto the map. I think there's only like 2 each round, and then if you find him, you can get loot from him. Like,
So is it gear?
I think it's gear.
Yeah, okay. So here I am starting on the process of doing the frilly piñata, ruffly, what is it called? Like fringy bits. So I cut a bunch of strips of the crepe paper and then I stacked them up on top of each other and cut slits halfway up, spaced out, and then I kind of bent them up while they were all still stacked, just kind of quicker to do all of the steps when it's stacked. And then I used a glue stick to glue it on, which I didn't think it would work, and it worked so well. I don't know what you're supposed to do, but this worked so well, and it was so fast and easy. I thought this part was gonna take forever, and the stacking the pieces to cut the slits sped that up. It took no time at all, and then this was so fast. So I just made sure that I was spacing them out so that they had a nice overlap, and behold, it looks amazing. Behold! So here are the printed pieces for the little box monster. Sam's working on the printed pieces, and then the parts that I made for the Loot Llama. So these, I just made them the right scale in Photoshop and then printed them and then cut them out. Sam is drawing monster pieces. So I had the box and I told her that I wanted to make it into a monster, and I asked her to draw ears, horns, eyes, feet, and arms. And she did such a good job. She just whipped this out. I can't believe how fast you are with Procreate. Look at those fingers go. And the zooming in and out, and it's just, it's freaky. It's like you look like somebody on the bridge in Star Trek doing drawings. You're so fast.
I tried to keep in the color scheme.
You did such a good job of matching the colors. I just printed exactly what you sent me. It matched the colors so perfectly. It was amazing.
Yay!
Here I'm gluing the printed pieces onto some cardstock, and then I cut them out. And then I just used the glue stick and glued them onto the piñata, and I'm using some brown paper to do the last details on the llama over there. So here they are finished. We've got our little monster box that Sam made and the Loot Llama. I think they turned out really well. Nice and festive. And I think it's a good craft to do because it sort of takes the pressure off, because you know you're going to be beating on it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be perfect because you're just going to be like hitting it with a stick. Yeah.
Like
Its whole point is to be a candy delivery device.